2:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning on May 18th, 2026. And let's see if I can get on here. Make sure everything's working. We are on day 2114 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, because he was a whistleblower, because he was the whistleblower. He's big, y'all. He's very, very big. I don't think there's been a whistleblower as big as Richard, because he's bringing the pillars down of this whole mega cartel corruption network at the border. And he was rogue and an unauthorized operation, of course, where they took him down to the arms room, and it's a soundproof room, and they took his life. Of course, they ordered that renovation of that room without any expenses spared, illegally, or obstructing justice, tampering with the crime scene. Um, and they did it without any bids, you know. So we have, praise God, you know, God's in control of this whole thing, because we have the seal on the door, we have the seal number, um, and we have other evidence corroborating that that is the crime scene. And of course, the evidence is so overwhelming that on April 24th, 2024, they designated Richard as deceased. And on January 24th, 2025, they redesignated him as in the line of duty, killed in the line of duty. And all the paperwork over these 6 years, including those official board of inquiries and President Trump's letters to us and everything, um, and all the mountainous evidence that we presented to make that all happen. Um, because we don't have Richard's remains, right? We don't have his remains. They stole his remains. This was a rogue operation. This was an unauthorized operation, because they used taxpayer money for all of this. Don't doubt that. Don't doubt that. And there's funeral fraud in this. That's why we believe, because Dallas Hart, who is the prime suspect, his father was the IDS Pueblo administrator for the Veteran Affairs, that we believe there is death benefit fraud involved in this. And because he was reported for officially for um, tampering with documents and fraud and using veterans' names and, you know, forgery and all of that. So we've put that paperwork online. You can see it. You can look it up for yourself, James Courtney Hart. And, you know, so we also have evidence that indicates that Richard's organs were harvested. This is part of their funeral home fraud network. We know that because of President Trump and Tulsi Gabbard making that amazing arrest, and having the press conference, the DNI press conference, when they arrested Martha Mendez Aguilar, La Diabla, who was organ harvesting at the border in connection with this funeral fraud, Del Carmen, and of course Plenitude Crematorium, all connected to Group of Purchase, which is the big funeral home transnational operation. She was also not only harvesting organs at the border, um, And oh my gosh, when you read the paperwork, you just want to throw up. They were also targeting pregnant women, and promising them jobs and whatever, especially crisis pregnancies. Um, just to let you know, Alejandra de la Vega Foster, the double agent, the El Paso Cartel operative, and her family. Um, I believe there's enough evidence to say and allege that they were her family history targets, because her mother was on Planned Parenthood, right? And other other evidence that they target crisis pregnancy. Um, so La Diabla was targeting crisis pregnancy, and her family worked for Backdoor Work, along with Justin Underwood's family worked for Backdoor Work, which is very important in this case. It has so many tentacles, but I have to get out the very important information, and I have to come out on very, very late and early in the morning, almost 2:30 in the morning here. I can't hold on to this information. I can't. This is a national security alert, huge breaches in our national security. Um, and I think it is the importance of it, the level is just, I mean, um, President Trump should be watching this every day, our channel. That's how I feel, because that's the level of intelligence that we're exposing, the breaches in our national security. Um, so when you have La Diabla targeting pregnant women, and then, taking their babies with these illegal C-sections, and they're horrible, so they were training like 16, 17-year-old girls to do these illegal C-sections. And you read through it. You can read through it on the DNI. Tulsi Gabbard, she reported on the whole thing. They sell these babies in the black market. They were targeting homosexual community in the United States to sell these babies to. That's not me. That's all documented. And of course, then the organ harvesting, and then what happens to the mother? The mother has to be disposed of, right? So you have to have this funeral fraud crematorium, and that's why these 400 plus bodies, that I believe uh, purchase took them for refrigeration, because they were in Plenitude Crematorium that had no air conditioning, no potable water, rat infested, filth. And then you give it to the same person involved. It's just so crazy, the cover up, and the cover up is it's so they're so infiltrated into every part of the system that they're just constantly covering up. The system is broken. And so our son's remains are indicated to be there, the rest of his remains. And yeah, so that's what we are, what they did to Richard is an act of war. And so I'm trying to find the comments so I can watch comments while I do this. There you go. Uh, so I have so much breaking news, and I just had to get through that, because you have to know that Tavita Newsom, the CID agent, that's also the prime suspect in the murder of our son, with family relations with Dallas Hart and Leilani Hart and James Courtney Hart, and also his brother Solomon Anusa being a major in the U.S. Army for mortuary operations, um, connected to, contracts with this whole funeral fraud industry there in El Paso. That's why the chief medical examiner, why we've been mentioning him. He is confirmed to be illegally in the country and not qualified for his position, making $500,000 a year of taxpayer money, and also confirmed cartel. Okay. And of course, you'd have to have the medical examiner and part of this. And of course, you'd have to have the county clerk, Delia Briones, is as dirty as anything with them because, she's in charge of the death certificates, birth certificates, all that stuff. So that, this is why this case um, is just taking down the pillars of corruption that has been built up over decades, okay, and absolutely in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein pipeline, okay. There's no wonder why he chose in the early 1990s to buy Zorro Ranch. There's no wonder why Beto O'Rourke's father-in-law chose to buy a ranch right beside Zorro Ranch. There is no wonder, being from Chicago, that Obama is involved in this. And of course, um, because Veronica Escobar held the purse strings for not only the Biden campaign, but also for the Harris campaign. Um, and of course, you have Oprah, all friends with them, pushing the Brazilian um, wicked demon part of this pipeline with the baby farms and all of his violence against women. And he's serving over 600 years in prison right now in Brazil. That just came out in 2025, I believe. Um, so this is, uh, something that you can't hide. If you're in the cartel, if you're in the position of power in the cartel, if you're Alejandra de la Vega, the El Paso cartel double agent, operative and double agent in the Abbott um, administration and in the Chihuahuan administration, and you sit on commissions, committees that are for intelligence and law enforcement for the border, you can't say you didn't know. Okay. Maru Campos and her mouth, right now is trying to say she didn't know. She absolutely knew. She was with Cesar Duarte, um, with the AG at the time, Roberto Fierro. And this is the breaking news that I had to come on because I can't keep this information. I have to get it out as soon as I confirm it. And Roberto Fierro was the Attorney General. He was the Attorney General for Maru Campos. Also, when they signed the um, treasonous treaty, and there's multiple agreements. It wasn't just that one treasonous treaty with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. And so they absolutely knew they were building up the surveillance, spying network along the border, which included the Toro Centella, uh, the price 1.27 billion for this network, AI surveillance network. The tower sits directly on the border, right by the bull ring. I've been to that bull ring. It's right there. You can walk to it from El Paso. And it this tower that's 20 stories high, the 18th floor was supposed to be for the DPS, the FBI, the CIA. Um, because this was like a joint operation, without any kind of federal authorization, right? They were just making their own country, right? They were just operating outside of the law and doing mega surveillance. And of course, in the pictures that I put up, you see the Pegasus software that they've been using for a long time, which can listen to every phone call and everything. That's why I can't keep this I can't keep this information just at home to ourselves. This information that we're getting, we have to get out. So I work very hard as soon as I get it to check it, to confirm it, to make calls, everything, and then put it together the best that we can and get it out quick. Get it out to you, make it public. It is really important for everyone to share it. So I saw that we are at 52,000 followers. So follow if you're not a follower, and and also share all this information. It is the biggest way that you can help, that you can keep uh, drive the accountability to happen, so that the people that have been getting hurt in all of this, that we've just got to stop this cartel bullying, the mob, the look with the Roberto Fierro, him causing, he's been accused of so many things. And let me bring that up because I'm going to read it. He's been accused of orchestrating the El Neto prison outbreak that caused multiple prison guards to be killed. Okay. Then, of course, you have the tampering of our son's files in Chihuahua. Absolutely, that I can tell you 100% our son's files were tampered with in Chihuahua, Mexico. Okay. Um, Also, he's been accused of threatening. This is the attorney general. Okay. The attorney general for Chihuahua has been accused of, now that's a of course, the attorney general, Cesar Hargi, is hiding out in El Paso now, wanting, he ran to Alejandra de la Vega, save me, and Woody Hunt, and Paul Foster, and Veronica Escobar, and Beto O'Rourke. And I wonder whose house he's staying in. He might be staying with Carlos Manuel Salas, the North Zone Attorney General, right? He might be staying with him there in El Paso because he has a house in El Paso and a car, a Mercedes, and, license and all that. So maybe that's where Cesar Hargi is. Um, well, we'll see. We'll see if this all comes out. But he is Roberto Fierro. He is accused of um, threatening to torture Javier Corral. Javier Corral is the former governor of Chihuahua, right? And I'm like, really? Wow. Why would that be? Well, don't forget about the secret payroll. Remember the secret payroll between that Javier Corral released, that shows Mario Campos signing off on embezzlement for Cesar Haragi, right? What was it, 400,000? right? 400,000. So there was this a lot of embezzlement, and we know that Cesar Duarte, um, the governor before um, Corral, they were embezzling, I mean, so much money. And it was Javier Corral that was exposing that. And so, Roberto Fierro, uh, the reason we were given for his threat to Javier Corral was to get even for exposing the secret payroll and the corruption, the embezzlement, and everything. Like they're just supposed to be able to rob the Chihuahuan people. Like Chihuahuan people don't need their money. The last time I was in Chihuahua, and I was in Chihuahua like probably 3 dozen times, in 2020, the people in Chihuahua need their money. They don't need to be robbed. They don't need to be robbed. Not by these rich people that what I'm hearing is that they like to spend it on booze. Okay. They like to spend it on, um, whatever, whatever. Um, and it's just sickening to see this. I have nothing against none of us have anything against wealth when people earn it and people are clever and they invent things and they build things and they do things. Um, President Trump, one of the first things I did in 2015 when he came. Uh, announced his presidency. I really didn't know who he was, believe it or not, because I hadn't watched any of those shows or whatever. And I was like, who is this guy coming down this escalator? Okay, he's a rich guy coming down the escalator and saying he's going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Who is this guy? Because he just, to me, because I like economics, I like to study that kind of stuff. To me, when he said that, I went, "Oh my gosh!" He just exposed the deficit that the United States has with Mexico by saying that. I didn't take it as a racist remark at all. I took it as him exposing um, the financial deficit that we had with Mexico. And so I looked up his financials, and I've even posted his financials, and I was blown away, because they went on and on and on and on. And this was, golf courses and hotels and all kinds of things for like making water bottling for all of his hotels so he could bottle his own water with his own brand on it and his own steak and his own gin and his own um towels and I don't know, just all kinds of and then when I looked at the property and saw that he had Turnberry, of course he had Ireland, of course he had South Korea, I mean he's all over the world, and all of these towers, not just one tower. And of course, I have family that lives in South Korea. We went by 4 humongous beautiful towers in Seoul, South Korea. And, then when he did the post office there in Washington, D.C., I was just like, wow, that's just amazing. And you see, as a president, he's also still building. He's a builder, he's a businessman, taking Turnberry, that was because Turnberry is the birthplace of Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce is the forefather of Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is probably the bluest blood leader that we've had in this country. And that's why I think they were taking down all the statues of Robert E. Lee because of this backtrack to Turnberry, Scotland, and the symbolism that it meant. Because anybody that reads about Robert E. Lee would absolutely respect. He was such a respected leader. Um, and most of the people that were taking down his statues didn't even know who he was. Um, so of course we have um, gifts from him from when he was alive. Um, uh, anyway, it's just um, there's just a lot to President Trump. He's a builder. I don't have anything against him being rich. I'm just so happy he's rich and successful and he knows how to do it. But these people in El Paso that are involved in this El Paso cartel, they steal, they rob, they murder, they cheat, they embezzle, they money launder with benevolence, like, oh, we're going to give these people this, and then they give it to themselves. It's um the way they money launder is so anyway, it's all coming out, and Robert Fierro absolutely worked with Alejandra de la Vega to because she was double agent, right? She was also working um and the economy and development and everything in the administration of Chihuahua. And so that whole development, all the organization, coordination of this surveillance network, they were involved in. We got pictures that they were involved in, even the tower, the 20-story tower with the helipad on the top of it, looking right directly at Fort Bliss, AI operation. Our uh, research tells us that Chihuahua has been using Pegasus for a long time. So, of course, Pegasus or an upgrade of Pegasus is being used in that for surveillance. Um, and of course, the person that built the tower with a no bid tower is very, I think that's part of his business is Pegasus. Um, so, Alejandra de la Vega, Maru Campos, Roberto Fierro, they absolutely knew what they were doing when they were making this treasonous treaty with Governor Abbott, and giving office space to the CIA right there in Chihuahua. They wanted to give them the whole 18th floor. Of course, she knew that the CIA agents were carrying M4s around and conducting and participating in unauthorized federal operations from a state level, right? So illegal. And of course, they lost their lives in the ambush. Um, the other thing that Roberto Fierro is accused of is taking a bribe for the release of Armando Gutierrez Rosas. He was a mastermind of the whole Aras Ponzi scheme. So it's just like, if it's not the fuel theft, remember the Pemex fuel theft, and then the embezzlement for whatever they like to, millions and millions of dollars for ranches in New Mexico and $1 million houses in Chihuahua and all this stuff, but it's all through stealing from the people. I mean, they're just the worst. And then to come out when you're caught red-handed. I mean, red-handed and caught and blocking people from coming and demonstrating, which they did, but they still a lot of people got there. Um, Not wanting Moreno to come in and point it out, especially with Javier Corral being part of the Moreno party. Um, yeah, it's look, she knew, and her mother knew. Her mother was coordinating also with Roberto Fierro for the whole funeral fraud thing and the Plenitude crematorium, So, of course, she knew. We put up the pictures. They are proof, they are evidence. Please share those everywhere. And I want to thank everybody for sharing the post. The last few days, we've just had really good sharing going on. And that is what is going to help Richard and his spirit, his absolute amazing spirit, finish up bringing down these pillars of corruption that have been built up for um, decades, right? Decades. They've been building these up decades. I mean, of course, um, Jeffrey Epstein's timeline is really, really helpful. It's a great timestamp because you see early 1990s. He was, of course, a financial advisor for the Iran Contra scandal. And, right after that, when they got away with it, they didn't totally get away with it, but enough got away with it. Buys Zorro Ranch. So, they have established this. The real breaking news is that um, Roberto Fierro wasn't happy enough with just getting the governor's office in Austin. He wasn't happy enough getting Chihuahua. He wasn't happy enough getting El Paso. He went further. He went further and he went to Quantico. He went to the FBI Academy. He infiltrated the academy in Quantico, Virginia. And that's really the big breaking news here. And we'll be elaborating on that, the next couple days, when it's not 3 o'clock in the morning. But it might take that. Having to do that. But this is, and we know with Michael Mayella being, the brother-in-law of Patrick Crucius, the alleged shooter for the Walmart mass shooting, working in the FBI office there in El Paso, still to this day working in the FBI office there. And of course, during the Walmart mass shooting, he was working at the DA's office. He was working for Walmart cybersecurity. He had this triple conflict of interest. I mean, the FBI, the DA's office, the Walmart cybersecurity, and he's the brother-in-law of the alleged shooter of the mass shooting. And then they come up with a narrative saying he didn't know anybody in El Paso. No, he didn't know anybody. Did you know, Patsy? I mean, um, it's just random and it was just a white supremacy thing. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. That's not the evidence. Where's the forensics then? Where's the forensics? Where's all the, no, they had to make plea deals. And you have Michael Mayella still working at the FBI, still doing this whole cover up. Um, and of course, Connell Wetton leaking identities of whistleblowers, including our sons. I think Connell Wetton, absolutely part of the El Paso cartel, um, and is responsible for the death of our son. Absolutely. And now you have Roberto Fierro because of this treasonous treaty, right? Because of this infiltration, this giving access. What did that treasonous treaty do? Well, of course, it allowed this 20-story AI surveillance high rise to be built, pointing right at El Paso. It also gave access to the cartel to our federal intelligence databases, our federal case databases to tamper with case information, surveillance data, all the recordings of surveillance, the uh, thousands and thousands of surveillance cameras they had access to. They had access to visas. They had access to banks. They had access to live in the United States, buy houses, open businesses, get driver's license. This is the cartel, okay? This is how they did it. And then because they operate without paying taxes, without following permits, without getting licenses, then their businesses do a bit better, right? They don't have to have what a normal person has to deal with, and then they do the quid pro quo to the likes of Abbott, who folded. Like, look, Texas is huge. It is supposed to have a strong governor, not strong in character. I mean, strong in character, because it's like in the top 5 of the world economies. Texas is not like any other state. And Governor Abbott got a couple rides in some private airplanes of the El Paso Cartel and just folded right into them. Folded right into them. Met with the CJNG cartel, signed the Abbott-Campos treasonous treaty, allowed Roberto Fierro to infiltrate into our FBI academy in Quantico, Virginia, allowed CIA agents to work without federal authorization, and do what? Mess with Mexico? Mess with Mexico? And then they get killed in an ambush? And then the Mexican president says, what the hell are they doing in our country? There has to be diplomacy and cooperation with the federal governments in order for the CIA, and people will probably laugh or whatever, but let me tell you, they get caught, they get killed. You don't hide their body, whatever they do for all the covering up, then there's trouble. And there's trouble in this case because those bodies are there and they're not alive anymore. The former Marine Captain, John Black, and the drone operator, Richard Johnston, they're not alive anymore. They got killed in Chihuahua, and they're CIA agents, and they had office space in Chihuahua intelligence building, and they were carrying M4s, which is illegal to do in Mexico, and they were operating illegally. And their names or surnames fit the Mormon colonies. What's going on here? And they weren't there to really stop a laboratory because the laboratory wasn't stopped. The confiscation of the illegal substances wasn't confiscated. They were on the payroll of Chihuahua. They were double dipping. They were double agents. Just like Alejandra de la Vega, double agent. And very, very dangerous. It's just such a security alert. and infiltrating our FBI. Was it not enough to infiltrate and take over the El Paso field office? They had to go for the Quantico, for the academy itself. For the academy itself. And then, let's say you get in federally, like President Trump or any president, any president that would, any candidate that would win the presidency, then they're just a puppet. Or they're infiltrated and their lives are at risk. And there is no wonder now, no wonder why there has been so many attempts on President Trump's life, because he's not putting up with this infiltration. He is absolutely trying to weed out this infiltration is in our military. It's in our FBI. It's in our CIA. That's what is being told here. That is absolutely what the evidence confirms. And this is what got Richard killed. And they were conducting rogue and unauthorized operations. And now it's time to stop it. Stop the infiltration. And I'm not unaware, the most infiltrated time in U.S. history was under George Washington, okay? Because there were so many that were loyal to the crown. And he was so infiltrated. If you've ever read the history of that, it's just amazing what he had to go through. And the same playbook of not wanting to give funds to give uniforms to our soldiers. Some of our soldiers during the Revolutionary War were naked because of the infiltration and all the games that Congress was playing and this and that. Yeah, it's very interesting history. And so we see that today where, our allies were giving us help with Iran, which Iran is absolutely part of that pipeline of the Iran-Contra, the gateway into China, which President Trump just went to China to have a meeting with and do all kinds of things. And I think this week we'll hear a lot of what happened in China. And that he went was just amazing. That he went to Beijing. So let's see. Who's up so early at 3:00? And it's 1:00 there in El Paso. Laura, thank you so much. And James Forster, thank you so much. The lot is cracking, right? And I think Richard is the one that put the wedge in, right? The wedge to crack the whole damn thing apart. It is falling apart, thank God. And of course, today, yesterday now was Ascension Day. So we're coming into a new season for us Christians. Pentecost is coming up real quick. And that always means so much. I mean, every season means so much because it just tells you that the human nature and what happens is it's always there's no secrets from God, right? There's no secrets from God, and the way to defeat evil is right there in our liturgy, in our calendar. And that's why it's so important to recognize the seasons of the year, because the seasons during the fight for accountability, for justice. It's the same. It's the same all the time. So, yeah, and Richard knew that, and he cracked it. He put the wedge, and he's the key, he's the wedge. Um, However, the analogy you want to put in there, he's the one that pulled the string. Yeah, did basic there. Hated that place in 87. Yeah, and the thing is I was born at White Sands and I went to school in El Paso, and eighth grade was hell. I can tell you that. Eighth grade was hell. I was really glad to leave. Um, and that was not anything against El Paso per se. It's the school system that was really, really bad, in my opinion. Um, but I loved El Paso, I really loved El Paso. I love the mountains, and I love the desert, and I loved being on a border. Um, but what they've done to it, I mean, that was years ago, uh, years ago, before 87. That was before 87. And it was, I guess, when the whole Iran Contra is when they ruined it. Because Iran Contra was out of El Paso. I don't know if people know that. This is just the continuation of Iran Contra. It's Iran Contra exploded. They just exploded it, right? They just went all out, and I don't know how much money that Americans have lost through there, and the lives are incalculable. What is it, 500,000 in like 2 years, a little over 2 years, 500,000 children trafficked through Fort Bliss, through the emergency intake center, under the cover, they got it going under the cover of this whole COVID crap. But yeah, it's time. It's time. So thank you. It's time to bring it down. Absolutely. Or, and I know that you can't totally, but we can try to do as much as we can. That's my point. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you so much. Please share, share, and share. We are a country for the people, of the people, by the people. Um, and you see, even Mexico knows you need to have a march. You need to have a march. You need to have sharing. You need to have people talking with each other to drive accountability. So thank you for sharing and for following